I fear when we gleify the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, we have to start really thinking, what are we doing here? What's the meaning of life in all this? Because what? Hi, my name is Tatyana, and I'm your melanated wise girl. And today we are capitalizing because we are in a capitalist society, of course, on the rise of musicals. Ever since the release of Wicked, anything and everything musical has been up like 100 times more. And I'm not complaining. It's a great time for me, a musical theater kid. But I fear we are losing our roots. And when I mean our roots, I mean the live musical roots of 2010s. Those roots. I did tweet about it because generally I thought I was the only person that remembered any of this. And luckily for me, I wasn't. It was a hit, if I say so myself. Also, if you're not following me on the X, Twitter, whatever it's called at the time this video comes out, app, please do. I'm pretty and I'm funny. That's enough to do that. So you should do that after this video, of course. I feel we are missing a very key part of pop culture history. Of course, I, your melanated wise girl, am down to explain the rise and the fall of live television musicals because, let's face it, it's what I do best. I like how I said it, what I do best, and I've only done 2 videos at this point. I did theater throughout high school and college. I just want to clarify that I am certified quite a bit, but I will put this disclaimer here. I do not know every Broadway musical. I am not that much into the Broadway scene at this point. So if I miss a Broadway actor or any of those as I'm going through, I am sorry. I'm sorry, okay? I'm trying my best here. I'm trying my best in this world. I'm just a girl. So let's go on a little ride into pop culture history and let's go through the rise and the fall of live television musicals. So before we get into the history and all that, I do want to specify my definition of a live television musical because there's not really an official one out there. It must be a musical with a defined story. The second criteria is that it was broadcast live majority of the time. I'm willing to push a little bit of pre-recorded segments and things like that. Of that nature, we'll get into it when we get into it. But a majority of it is live to broadcast, similar to award ceremonies like the Oscars, Golden Globes, etc., the news. You get my drift. Those are my 2 criteria for a live television musical. So I'm not referring to things like the Hamilton Pro Shot that was on Disney Plus in 2020 or PBS's Great Performances, which, here's my plug, please support your local public media, especially during this time. This is different. This is magic. Okay, now that we got out of the way, let's now talk about history. So the first documented case of a live television musical is back in 1955 through NBC's Producers Showcase. This was a show that allowed for different theater performances and other forms of entertainment, staged art to be broadcast nationwide. Now, it said it was for the sake of the arts, but to be honest, it was so that they could promote colored TVs because that wasn't really in all households at that point because capitalism. The live musical that they chose, Peter Pan. At the time, it was a big Broadway hit and they were able to bring back all of the original Broadway cast for this production. And it did incredibly well. So well that NBC decided to do it again 2 years later as its standalone special. So CBS decided that they wanted some of NBC's nachos and they took it a step further. So in 1957, they got the famous Rodgers and Hammerstein to come up with their own version of Cinderella. And yes, this is the Cinderella that we eventually all know and love to be the Brandy version of Cinderella. It was written specifically for a live television musical, starring the one and only, the queen herself, Julie Andrews. I recommend you go check out the full Cinderella broadcast. It's actually on YouTube for free through the Julia Andrews archive. I'll leave a link in the description below. It's so cool to see. Just as somebody who is a television geek in herself and musical theater person, it's just incredible to see Julie Andrews truly like in her prime. Like she's always in her prime, but like in her prime, and also just like what they were able to achieve in 1957. This was viewed by 100 million people. I can't fathom. That's so many people. Live. It was viewed live by 100 million people. So again, it is for free on YouTube. Check it out after you finish watching this video, of course. Help a Black girl with her watch time, please. After this, it's a little bit lost of if there are any more up until the 2010s. For this video, because there are about only 12, I say before I go through this massive script, I'm going to go through each live musical. I'm not going to tell you plots because a lot of these are very common musicals. If I need to, I will. But for the most part, I want to go through each one and just tell you behind the scenes, my thoughts, and overall critiques and reviews of it. Let's fast forward a bit to the year of 2013. The year is 2013. The top song of the year is Thrift Shop by Malcolm Moore and Ryan Lewis. And NBC fears they need the next big television event. This is coming as social media, particularly Twitter, named at the time, was growing and more people were live tweeting events. So NBC went back to the roots, and that's how we got The Sound of Music live, the first NBC live musical in decades. Their first big test was this. Who were they going to cast as Maria? When you think of an icon that could rival Julie Andrews, who do you think? Did you guess Carrie Underwood? Because that's what NBC decided to do. Look, there's no hatred on Miss Carrie Underwood. Miss Before He Cheats is a anthem in itself. But Carrie did not have theater experience, which is something that a lot of people noted when she was casted. She did say that she asked Julie Andrews permission to do it before she officially accepted the role, which is, I guess, cool and all. But like, as if I was Julie Andrews, I'd be like, I guess it's not like I can stop you. I don't know. I don't know what happened in that conversation. I'm being parasocial. But we do know the response of the real life Von Trapps. Yeah, so I 100% forgot that The Sound of Music was based off a real story. The real life Von Trapps said to ABC News, and I quote, "Now we have this glossy tabloid figure playing this role." See, personally, if somebody said that about me, I would control all. Let me be classy on this YouTube channel. Oh, hello. You have anything to say about Sound of Music? She ran off. Ariel the cat will not be making her debut. Let us continue. Other notable cast members of this first edition includes Miss Broadway legend herself, Audria McDonald. Love her. Sorry, we just need a moment to appreciate the legend that is Audria McDonald. Laura Bonetti, the guy from True Blood, who also does the next musical. A lot of people liked him, so I thought I would include him. There will be a picture here, but I didn't put his name in the scripts. As well as Miss Sophia Ann Carso. If you don't know, she originated the role of Lydia on Beetlejuice on Broadway, but I also know her from, well...
I hope I'm not late.
High School Musical, the series, is truly always at the scene of the crime. I swear to God. So this opener came with a bit of mixed reviews. I mean, it was their first one. So, like, it wasn't going to be hit out the park. Personally, I was like, it's a musical. That's what I'll say on that matter. But the musical was a hit. It got 21 million views. This being the most since the series finale of Frasier for NBC. So yeah, they were going to do it again. The year is 2014. Happy by Pharrell Williams is plaguing any and every audio device that you have, your parents have, your school has. I swear that song was everywhere. And NBC is doing it again. another holiday musical. This time, they're going back to their roots, truly. Peter Pan Live. Starring in the title role of Peter Pan was Allison Williams. Now, you're probably like, interesting. A girl is playing Peter Pan. But despite like NBC's promotion and everybody being like, it's a girl playing Peter Pan, this was actually very common, especially back in the 50s. There could be a lot said of why they decided to do this, but this wasn't the first time nor the last time that this was going to happen. Allison Williams, once again, leading in a trend of casting somebody with zero theater experience. Not only does she have zero theater experience, she's a Nepo baby on top of that. Now, I have not watched Girls. I do not know. She's probably great in that. I think she was great in Get Out. But why are we doing this? This happened 14 years ago. You need to calm down. Calm down. Oh my God, 2014 was 10 years ago. Like I said, the way NBC decided to advertise this, that it was a girl playing Peter Pan, was giving when Disney is like, oh my God, the first gay Disney character. But it's like the 5th time they've said it. Other notable cast members include Christopher Walken playing Hook, and he was walking. That is for sure. It also has Tara Louderman, who, if you're a Broadway fan, particularly a Mean Girls fan, she originated the role of Regina George on Broadway as Wendy. And they brought back the True Blood guy. I don't remember what his role was, but a lot of people appreciated that he came back. Apparently, according to y'all, this was also some of y'all's gay awakening. I'm not judging, but why? I understand logically, but I guess go off. Go off. Go off. Okay. Though this did not do the best review-wise, though it did do better than Sound of Music Live, with a sounding 56 on Rotten Tomatoes, and ratings-wise, it got 9 million as opposed to the 21 million. But NBC says there are almost 500,000 tweets produced about this event, so they considered it a hit. They decided to do it again. The year is 2015. Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars is in your airways, and The Wiz Live is NBC's holiday musical, and this is a musical. You can tell I get excited about the ones that I like. I'm sorry, I adore The Wiz Live. Wait a second. I might need to do an explainer corner for this one. 1 second. Hi. Welcome to a different part of the room that I film in. The Wiz, or we should call her by her formal name. The Wiz, the super soul musical Wonderful Wizard of Oz. It's an African-American retelling of the 1900s book, The Wonderful World of Oz. This first was introduced to the world as a Broadway adaptation in 1975. The famed film adaptation that came after was in 1978, starring kind of a bit too old to play a teenager Diana Ross and Michael Jackson, in this other imagined version of The Wizard of Oz. Miss Wicked Witch of the West, as we formerly know now as Elphaba, is not Elphaba in this musical. She is Eveline. She is not like her wicked counterpart. She is just inherently evil. There are actually 2 good witches, as referred to in the children's book that it references from, The Good Witch of the North and South. I 100% recommend you check it out if you haven't. It is an incredible depiction, both the movie and the show, of Black culture, particularly in the late 70s, early 80s, and Afrofuturism. Incredible. All right. Thank you for coming to Melanated Wise Girl Education Corner. Let's get back into the musical of it all. Did you enjoy my explainer corner? Thank you. I worked very hard on decorating that area, clearly. For The Wiz Live, they did something that I think they should have done for the first 2 musicals. A open call search. They actually did a regional, if not a national call for their lead, Dorothy, which she found in Shanice Williams. But additionally to that, this cast just in itself is stacked. Let me just name you off the cast. First, we have Elijah Kelly, who is, yes, always at the scene of crime of a Black musical adaptation, but you may know him best from Hairspray 2009, his rendition of Run and Tell That. Chef's kiss. We also have Neo, who played the Tin Man, and definitely chose a dialect. He chose a dialect. David Allen Greer played a Cowardly Lion. Queen Latifah played the Wiz in a true gender bent. I found it very interesting. This was like in drag, which is really cool. And they referred to her in the musical was he, him pronouns. So 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Great time. She did incredible. Amber Wiley as the Good Witch of the North. When I say Amber Riley can sing me anything, and I mean anything, she can sing my grocery list, my lullabies. I just want her to do anything and everything. I am Amber Riley's biggest fan. You know what? I'm going to try to put in as much as I can without copyright of just her ending note from this musical because it's just, it's so good. It's so good. She's so good. I just love Amber Riley. Okay, let me continue. Uzoduma is Glinda the Good Witch. And then we have Stephanie Mills, who originated the role on Broadway as Dorothy and playing Aunt Em. And then we had Common playing the bouncer. I also really quickly forgot to mention Mary J. Blige played Eveline and did incredible. Okay, back to the video. But both to my heart and viewers alike, this was their most successful musical yet. It was incredible. It just demonstrates, I think, not only just what you need to do, especially since it was considerably all Black. It's just, I love The Wiz and I love what they did with it. This is the first musical I sat down and watched with my family, and the first one I watched live was NBC Musicals. And I fear this caused my little sister to have a attachment to The Wiz in general, you know, as like little kids do. So for Christmas, I got her the DVD duo pack of The Wiz Live and The Wiz the movie. And I think I am one of 5 people that have that. With a 97 on Rotten Tomatoes and 11 million viewers bumping it up from Peter Pan, particularly in majority African American households, right when you thought NBC really got this, they secured the bag, another network was in the wings, waiting for their chance to show off. And that they did. 2016 in general was the year of live musicals. We not had 1, not 2, but 3. 3 live musicals. And we're going to talk about each and every one. First, we're talking about what's the newest addition to the live musical gang, Fox. And what's their first musical? Greaselive. Greaselive was actually supposed to be in the summer of 2015, but they pushed it to winter 2016, just due to various production and casting reasons. But this cast, they came through, was pretty stacked. I'm going to say that a lot, but I think particularly Fox came out swinging. Erin Trevette played Danny. Vanessa Hudgens was Rizzo. Julianne Hough was Sandy. And at first I was like, oh, I know she dances, but does she sing? Y'all, I discovered she had a whole country music career. Girl, she charted and everything. There are truly 2 different worlds out there, because other notable cast members include Miss Carly Rae Jepsen as Frenchie, Kiki Palmer as Marty, Jordan Fisher. Because what did I say, folks? High School Musical, the series. It's always at the scene of the crime. And Carlos Penavega, which you may know from Big Time Rush and Somewhere Always Was His Wife at some point in time. This is not even in addition to the other appearances that this musical had. We had Jessie J doing a theme song. That's new. DNCE was Joe Jonas being the band for the American Bandstand scene, which I think was a genius placement. And then Boys to Men for Beauty School Dropout. When I say they came out swinging, they came out swinging. Now, this production didn't come without its challenges, and there are two notable ones that I want to touch on. The first being the storm that was supposed to take place during the live broadcast. So they said they had a bunch of rain plans and things to consider, but they found out an hour before that there was going to be a set that they might not be able to use at all, and they were panicking. But it ended up working out 30 minutes before production. Everything became clear and the storm passed. You can see it was in the first musical performance, Jessie J's opening number. They were using umbrellas as their backup plan. The storm had cleared out after they did, I think, their first couple of scenes, so they were able to continue as normal. The second big thing was the night before the broadcast, Vanessa Hudgens' dad passed away due to cancer. This was something that she announced herself on Twitter the morning of, saying she was still going to continue to do the broadcast in honor of him. And to do something at this caliber live while facing such tragedy like that is just, she's that girl. I couldn't even imagine having to go through that. And it was seemed like it was her choice specifically to continue on. They did dedicate the broadcast to him, and the cast was very much so supportive of her, she said after. This production was incredible. It was really well done. Technically, it was done so well. They were able to distinguish themselves from NBC musicals, I think, was the inclusion of a live audience for the first time in these. And I think how they did it was pretty well. It wasn't in every scene, but it was in scenes where it made sense. There were, of course, technical moments where the audience was louder than the actors, and they were able to adjust as goes on. But overall, I think it was great. I generally enjoyed it. My standouts to me, and I don't think it's talked about enough, is Miss Kiki Palmer, Freddie My Love. Kiki Palmer is a force to be reckoned with, and I don't think we appreciate her Broadway musical theater side enough. Like, she gave us Rags, so like, of course she was going to come out the park swinging, and she did, and I think it was just amazing. Also, These Magic Changes by Jordan Fisher magically changed me as a 16-year-old. I don't think you understand how many times I played that song when it came out. I think I bought it on iTunes. We don't always agree with the choices that we make, but I did spend my money on this, and I have no regrets. I do not. It's so good. I just watched the performance for the first time in a while, like a long while, and it still hits. NBC realized that Fox was coming for their nachos, and they had to think fast. Hairspray Live. Now, I will say also they did an incredible job casting this. Just to start out, they did, like they did with The Wiz, a region-wide open call where they found a college sophomore to do this. And I will say that she kept up with everybody so well and did so good. Like, I give her 100% props for just like being able to do that. Like, college sophomore me barely functioned as a human, let alone was able to do a live musical. So, also notable cast members in this include Miss Ariana Grande. She played Penny. We had Kristen Chenoweth and Dove Cameron being an iconic mother-daughter duo. They just have to play mother-daughter in every musical. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. They have to. I think we are missing out on, personally, a musical drama with them being mother and daughter. I think that would be both their Oscars. I'm dead serious. They done this. They're 2 for 2. Martin Shorts, Jennifer Hudson, Derek Huff, as well as Garrett Clayton, who you may know from Teen Beach Movie. I remember not liking it when I originally watched this live back when it premiered. And I was trying to remember why. Because when I was like, am I just a hater? Did I just not like this? Like, what was up? I didn't agree. They did incorporate a live audience, kind of like Fox did, but I don't think they did it as well. It kind of felt like they had it in the right places, but it also felt a little out of place. They had a host for it. It was weird. Then I realized that it was my fault, because at the end of Hairspray, the movie, Little Inez wins the whole thing. I didn't realize that was a change they made for the movie. In the original Broadway musical, it's always Tracy who wins. So I catch my surprise was like, oh my God, NBC is racist. How are they gonna change this? No, I was just unresearched and uncultured. So I like the movie ending better. And if I had to choose between watching the movie and this, I will choose the movie again and again. Like I said, the cast did great. We Can't Stop the Beat was fantastic for the most part. That is the song known in theater as like one of the hardest songs to do. Is a song that you run out of breath doing because you're dancing and you're singing and doing all these notes, and it's a lot. So like I give them that. It's just not my favorite. It's not my favorite, but I did enjoy it. It got a 76 for criticism. A lot mentioning just the direction and the energy not really picking up until Welcome to the 60s, which I agree with. Maybe that's why I just didn't enjoy it. I felt like I was tuning it in and out when I was watching it. Miss Ariana did great though. I think you got to remember that Miss Ariana started on Broadway. She was 13. That's why, this is really random, but that's why when it got announced that she was doing Wicked, I was like, oh, this makes sense. Like everybody else was like, why did you choose her? I was like, no, did you not see her in Hairspray? Do you not realize she started on Broadway? Like she's going to eat this. And she did. I did say there were 3 musicals that came out. Do I have to talk about this one? All right, let's talk about it. The third musical, Passion, New Orleans. You know, when you gleify the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, we have to start thinking to ourselves, what are we doing here? And that's exactly what Passion sort of did. I am just generally surprised this was done in the Obama era. Let me stop. I want to say everything I'm about to say about this musical is not about its religious undertones at all, but more so about it technically. I just want to state that, especially as we go into another musical, which I think did way better. The Passion is something that is typically done in Europe, and of course, as most American things do, we stole it. Fox put this on for Easter Sunday as a modern retelling of Jesus and his, final days before. This felt weird to categorize. And when I talked earlier about definition of a live television musical, I hesitated whether or not I wanted to include this because of the fact that it's pretty hybrid. A lot of the scenes that they shot or that their musical portion of it are actually pre-recorded, but they did do live to tape. So for that reason, I decided to keep it. This was narrated by Tyler Perry. His hometown is in New Orleans and he's pretty religious himself, so this is not a total surprise. It's honestly hard to describe this one as it was done like concert hybrid style. It was consisted of 3 different parts. So it would be Tyler Perry's narration, maybe an on-stage performance. Then it would cut to pre-recorded segments, different parts of Jesus's last days that were shot throughout New Orleans. And then it would also cut to a tradition within the Passion in Europe, which is a procession of people carrying a cross that they will put up at the end of the special. So it was following that, and it was also these clips. It was just a lot of back and forth. My favorite random fun fact about this is the guy who wrote the script for High School Musical also wrote this. What a jump. What? Like I mentioned before, they kind of gleified this, meaning that they used covers of various songs for this production. Catch my surprise when I saw Jesus starting to sing Home. Other notable casts other than Tyler Perry includes Chris Daughtry, you might know from American Idol, Jen Carlos played Jesus, Prince Royale, Seal, and then also Shane Harper, who seems to be always at the scene of a Christian movie. But you may also know him from Good Luck Charlie. I think for me, I didn't understand the goal here. Like if we were trying to do this as the first time people were really viewing this story, wanted them to learn this story through a modern retelling, which I think can be and has been done. I think casting the person who plays Judas as someone notable and then having, I don't want to say unknowns, but like unrecognizable people play the rest of the disciples kind of like beats the point of it. Like, which one of you will betray me? Will it be you, extra number 1, extra number 5, Prince Royale, Chris Daltrey? I wonder who. I also found it really interesting that they mentioned how it was really hard for them to get permissions to do a lot of the cover songs because they found people really confused when they were trying to mention it. Hearing Bring Me to Life unironically in this was... Any audience that's already super religious and people that just like, we're there for the vibes. Honestly, it's a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, and take that as you will. That's the end of 2016. Whew, what a year. Let's get into the rest of it. Now we have reached 2017. The top songs of the year are between Despacito and Black Beatles, and the only musical that we have this year is A Christmas Story Live from Fox, actually. This one, I forgot happened. I'm going to be honest. And it's funny because I love A Christmas Story. Personally, it's something that my family watches every year on Christmas. But I think that's the general consensus on this one, especially since this was Fox doing it and not NBC, which was kind of a different curve. NBC was going to do Bye Bye Birdie this year with Jennifer Lopez for their holiday musical, but it just ended up falling through and not working out.
Thank God.
Notable cast, a lot of them were played by children, but we do have Maya Ruffalo as the mom, and then we had Matthew Brunwick as the narrator / older version of Ralphie, who you may know from Ferris Bueller and Simba. He played Simba. This is the first, I swear to God, when I was researching this and I found out he played Simba. You learn something new every day. This necessarily didn't do well, but I think it's because Fox didn't advertise this as a musical. So when people watched, they're like, oh, kind of similar to Mean Girls 2024, even though it had the potential of being a cult classic. Studios just find it fun to just hide that things are musicals for what. It was not bad. I think the kids did really well, and a lot of the critics were praising the performances. Camera shots really dynamic and really cool. I just think it was really jarring to have this sort of musical atmosphere with the production and, the setting itself. It did okay to me, but according to critics, it was 46 Rotten on Tomatoes, so maybe not okay to them. That's A Christmas Story Live. Not much about it, but it was interesting to say the least. I'm losing words. Let's move on. The year was 2018, and NBC was ready to come back, right? God's Plan by Drake was the top song of the year, and I think that says a lot with NBC's musical this year. Jesus Christ Superstar, live in concert. Now you're thinking, Tatyana, didn't you say earlier that concerts did not count as live TV musicals? Hear me out. While I do think the live in concert was more of a marketing play, Jesus Christ Superstar is indeed a musical. It's a rock opera. So I would consider this a live musical as it tells a complete story and it was shot completely live. It's so funny comparing it to Passion from Fox, just like how much this made not only more sense, but just scale-wise, how well it did. I accidentally watched this. Like I wasn't interested in watching it, and I stumbled upon it with some friends when this premiered, and we just stayed tuned to it because it was really interesting and we were kind of tuned in. I mean, it's a story by Andrew Lloyd Webber, who has an interesting history in theater, but when it hits, it hits. Notable cast includes John Legend, Sarah Bareilles, Brandon Victor Dixon, Alice Cooper. Like, the cast may have been not as star-studded as previous ones, other than, John Legend, and at the time he was at his peak at this point, essentially. But it was, again, well casted, well done. This is one of two with 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. out of these live musicals, and it earned John Legend his EGOT. He got an Emmy from this, as he was also an executive producer. Overall, I think this was a great production. I think it was really cool just how they staged it. I think this was really a good step from how they used audiences in past live musicals, so at least for NBC. So I was really excited. I enjoyed this, and so did critics, and it was a hit. It got 9 million views, so good job, NBC. We are now at 2019, with the song of the year being Old Town Road by Lil Nas X and Billy Ray Cyrus, the remix of it, after the whole racism and not being country. And I'm getting off topic. What was I saying? This technically had, I would count one live musical, but Disney also did do the live Little Mermaid in 2019. I'm not considering this or the Beauty and the Beast special, even though anything that her does, I will tune into, listen to, anything. I don't count those as live television musicals. They are, I would say, they are more on the variety specials, especially Little Mermaid Live, that was more of just like watching the movie hybrid sort of thing. I don't think it was, if you were just to put the live elements together, it wouldn't really make sense. So I'm not going to talk about them in this video because it's probably way too long at this point anyway. So sorry. But there was one official live musical that happened. Well, almost. Rent Live. Rent would mark Fox's last attempt at the musical. And I understand why. It's so funny because I feel like Rent had so much going for it too. Like, I was really, really excited for this one. We all know the iconic Seasons of Love from Rent, but I had recently watched the movie for the first time, so I was all for Rent. I was like, Rent, before I had to pay it. Just the cast also, they brought back Jordan Fisher and Vanessa Hudgens for this. Also bringing in some more key people like Mario, Tanashi, Brandon Victor Dixon came back for this one, or came to Fox for this one. Such a good cast, and I hate what happened to them. So let's get into it. The night before broadcast, they were doing a recorded dress rehearsal. One of the main cast members broke his ankle during one of the final numbers. The issue? They didn't have understudies. But that should be a thing. Just because this is television doesn't mean you can negate, what is such an important part of musical theater and just, theater in general, the understudies. At minimum, there should have been, I say this as gender is a social construct, one female and one male understudy at least. Somebody that was able, they would actually be more so swings, but somebody that was able to at least understand or be able to pick up the lines if needed, and then make that main cast member something in the background or something like that. Personally, I think they should have had an understudy for every single main person, but alas, it's the way it is, I guess. They didn't have one at all. Because of this, and because it was the night before live broadcast, what they ended up doing is showing the recorded rehearsal for a majority of the broadcast before cutting into the live feed for the final few songs that they were able to modify for the actor that was in the wheelchair. Hi, so upon further review and further research while editing this video, I discovered that for the audience, for the 1,000+ audience that they had in studio during the live production, they actually ended up doing a modified version of a majority of the musical. According to the Vulture article, which I'll leave in the description, they only performed about 15% of it that they watched on the broadcast. The rest of it, they actually performed for the audience with the modified version. I thought that was really cool, and I thought it was a fact that I wanted to include in this video as we continue talking about it. It just makes me so sad because when you're rehearsing, especially for a big production like that, for your final rehearsal, you're not using your full voice. You might do something that you are thinking about doing but not sure about because you might get final notes about it. you might experiment a little bit with a part or a line. And the fact that those had to be broadcast on television, I just feel so bad for this cast. While I don't think it was going to be perfect, I do think this could have been up there with Grease and The Wiz and just as a really great musical, but just because of the circumstances, it just didn't work out as such. I think, and it sucks because you can tell at this point, you can tell when people were dropping off as they announced early that the live was going to feature the original Broadway cast, which I think they were going to try to keep as a surprise for the end. So it kind of sucks that they had to spoil it because of everything that happened and to keep viewership. The pre-recorded version of it, I remember watching live. There was a lot of like technical issues and things like that that I'm sure they would have worked out. They still did get a little bit of praise for their performances in the rehearsal tape, including Vanessa Hudgens and Jordan Fisher. But again, it sucks that this was the thing that Fox ended on, and this was their last hurrah with live musicals. They were doing pretty decently at this point, and it sucks that it ended on such a sour note for them. It did get a 22% on Rotten Tomatoes and not really well viewership. I couldn't find exact numbers. Sorry, I just remembered what I have to talk about next. Let's just get this over with. We all know what happened in 2020, and I didn't even bother looking up a top song for this. At this point, this script is way too long. And the next thing I have to watch is Matthew Morrison terrorize my screen. So give me some grace with this section, okay? I had to deal with a lot. Dr. Seuss's The Grinch musical live was the 2020 musical for NBC. This happened. I will say this was advertised as live, but I'm not gonna fault them that due to COVID protocols for productions at the time. So I was even surprised that they were able to do this considering most productions were halted. They did have to record this in segments and not broadcast it live. So while it was live to tape, it wasn't live to screen, which is fine considering anything and everything that was happening in 2020. They got a production up, which is a win in itself, to be honest. There's not really much for notable people in this other than the one and only Mr. Shu. Boo Boo Stewart played the dog. Why did he do that? He did good. I don't know. I don't know this musical. I don't like. I feel my brain melting in real time. I think you're witnessing the first human brain melt. Anyways, can't even tell you like how the production as a whole went because this is actually considered lost media. Every other production on here, even greaselive, even the rest of them have been uploaded on either some streaming service, YouTube, illegal streaming sites, etc. Except the Grinch. And people don't seem to be upset about it. Because personally for me, if something that I put my time and energy into was considered lost media and people were cheering about it, I would change the trajectory of everyone's lives. But I guess I'm not as strong as Matthew Morrison. So from what I saw on YouTube, it was a musical. I think the little kid that played Cindy Lou Who is very cute and adorable and killed her part. It didn't get good reviews or viewership. So let's just move on. Please. The year is 2021. Good for you and Levitating were dominating the charts. And NBC decides to do their last and final musical, I believe for now, was Annie live. Now, I do adore Annie, the musical, just in general. The amount of times the overture of the 2014 version of Annie was in my Spotify Wrapped, we don't need to talk about it, okay? It's good. I'm sorry. The 2014 music eats. It eats. It's great. It's great. I say what you want, but I enjoyed the soundtrack at my big age, okay? So I was actually pretty excited that they were doing Annie. Taji Benson, Harry did were in this. They also did a nationwide open call for the girl playing Annie, and it was a little black girl. Love that. Love that for her. All I'm gonna say is that they ate up It's a Hard Knock Life. The girls did what they had to do with that. Incredible. 10 out of 10. If I'm not remembering correctly, and I couldn't figure this out, I think a dance mom girl was one of the ensemble members, but I do not remember. So if anybody could let me know, please let me know. I generally could not figure it out if that was true or not, if I'm thinking of another one. I know that Maddie Ziegler was in West Side Story, but I think there was another one in this one too. But I'm not sure. This was really cute. Like I enjoyed, like, this was cute. I feel bad. The original person that played Annie was supposed to be in this on Broadway, was supposed to be in this, but had COVID-19, so had to drop out last minute. I just think that this one just was set in the wrong time. Actually, no. I disagree with that. I think if this was done now, everybody on Twitter would say that she was chosen because of DEI, and I would once again have to be defending a black girl who is a minor on that Bird X app, and I can only do so many before my heart just like stops. Okay, I can't. I can't. While it was good, it had like 6 million viewers. I think the demand for them were just getting really low, and in turn, people weren't tuning in to broadcast anymore. But it got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's 100% in my heart. That is the last musical adaptation. So let's talk about why they stopped. I think what people need to understand about these musical adaptations is that they were pouring millions of dollars into this. So, of course, when studios A got more greedy and B were really not seeing the return of their investments, they decided to stop. Also, the chairman of NBC, who originally was pioneering these, moved on from the network. So I think just the idea of them just became lost as well. I think what we can take from these live musicals is a lot of these musicals, especially after the first two, had two directors, one for the musical part and one for the television part. And I think you can tell when those two directors worked really well together and when those two directors were lacking. I think as Hollywood started cutting productions and the hype of musicals at this point were at a low, they just didn't feel it necessary to do these. Which sucks because I think these live musicals would have been such a great way of introducing people to live theater, particularly during the pandemic, not just through Matthew Morrison, but even with different variety specials or something of that nature of Broadway shows that couldn't run due to everything that was happening. I think in a different life, they could have been really utilized to uplift that community at that point. Plus, the public perception of musicals and the musical theater person in general, I fear was at a all-time low in 2021, 2022. The hype of Hamilton and all that went significantly down. I think live television musicals are a great way of introducing the masses and the general public to Broadway and to these different musicals that we may not otherwise see. I think with the rise of Wicked and the rise of the musical once again, I would not be surprised if NBC in particular, but maybe another network brings something like this back. They do, not just as a special, but doing a live musical. Disney, of course, did their Beauty and the Beast celebration, and I'll just be really interested to see if come next year or the year after we see something along these lines. If they do, I do have some recommendations. Let's hire understudies this time. Let's not cheap out on that. Let's hire understudies. Actors get sick, actors get injured. It happens all the time. I think the general public will be okay. Also, let's choose people that have maybe some musical theater experience. I think they did a better job in the later ones, but let's uplift the musical theater community. I think especially in the time of social media and TikTok, there are a lot of people out there that would carry an audience that we can utilize. Let's go for diversity. I see you guys are all wiping away your diversity centers. But we should aim for diversity in these. I've been talking way too long. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you made it this far and you listen to me ramble, let me know what your favorite musical out of the list was. I would really appreciate it. I'm going to put right here my rankings for the musicals. Let me know if you agree with my list, and what you think of the live television musical. Do you think they're going to come back? I personally think they will. They will look different, but I do think within the next couple years we may see NBC particular doing it again. If you like me, if you want to see more of my content, if you want to see more video essays, my commentary, things of that nature, be sure to subscribe. You can also follow me on the platforms as you do. They're in the link in the description. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. I really do. So stay cool, stay wise. I don't know what my outro is yet, y'all, but stay wise, stay true. I told y'all I still don't know my outro. be all right, bye.